Hello, Miss Michelle Gray. How you doing?
I'm very good, Elisa. How are you?
Good. And hi, Eric. I love you. I hear you've been very physically present in the Gray household. Michelle, tell us about that.
At first he goes, "Hi, Mama," and he's like, and he's just kind of laughing, and he's had a lot of fun with us. A lot of different things. Like he does flicker lights quite a bit, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go in to have my shower, and the lights will start just going like flicking on and off. He does a
Oh,
lot of bathroom tricks. He's
oh
in the
yeah.
bathroom quite a bit.
Just to
But
embarrass.
with my Well, I think so, just to let me know that he's there and he knows what I'm doing. I don't
Right.
know.
He's
But
seen you naked.
I told him that that area, it's like there's blinders. I'm like, you cannot see a thing. I will not allow it. He just laughs about it. Um, anyway, but my daughter and I were sitting together and we were having a conversation, and it was a little like a serious conversation, but we were talking about spiritual stuff. And this is my 13-year-old daughter, and we had an incense stick going. And Eric was kind of, I was about to have a session shortly afterwards, and he was there. He wasn't really saying much, but I know he was listening to us. And then all of a sudden, the incense, we both hear it go, and we watched it break right off in half, and we watched it sail
Oh
like a
my
firecracker,
God, like a firecracker. It sounds like
like a firecracker, and it
yeah.
did a little and
Oh,
landed, and we
cool.
were like, my daughter gets up and she goes, "That's it. There is enough going on around here. That's it." She goes, "I think I've seen it all now."
Really? 4th of July in Canada.
Pretty much. But things like that. And we had Halloween. My son is 6 and he's autistic and has a little bit of ADHD. And he will, when Erik is around, and my son will always just kind of look up in the air a little bit, and then he'll just bring Erik's name into it. Well, he was playing with his airport, and he had like a little toy airplane, and he kept saying, "Okay, Captain Erik." He goes,
Aww.
"Get in the plane, Captain Erik."
Oh, that's
And
so
I said,
cute.
Marky, is Erik playing with you?" And sometimes he won't answer. He'll just kind of look above me, and he
Oh,
always looks up here.
wow.
And it's just so funny because he told us on Halloween that Erik was wearing all black,
Oh,
and that's because he usually says Erik has on a red T-shirt and like a white hat,
right.
or he'll say the peak is at the back, that Erik has his hat turned around.
Oh,
But on
yeah.
Halloween, I said, "What is Erik wearing?" And he kept calling him a black cat. He had a black
Oh.
shirt and a black hat. So I'm not sure if that's what Erik was portraying to him, as a black cat. That's
Well,
kind of
Eric,
what
is
we're
that what you
going
were
with
for
him.
Halloween? Were you a black cat?
He's saying yes, and he actually just showed me the image of, we have a cat that's a black cat, and
Oh.
this cat's like a therapy cat
Oh, how
for
awesome.
Marcus. So
Hey, Eric, let me ask you a question for
yeah,
Marky.
okay.
Would they found that autism has is based in inflammation, and a lot of people say that making a low dose naltrexone cream and putting it on them at night really helps. Would Marky benefit by that?
He said that he would.
All right, check that out, Michelle.
He said that he would. That is very interesting. He
Yeah,
also
look up
said
LDN, and
LDN.
autism, and
Okay.
good.
He's also telling me too that Marky would benefit from the weighted blankets.
I
He's
was
just saying
just
that as
wondering,
well.
what about
Mhm.
grounding sheets?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes. And
okay.
and
What?
that's why he said to me, last week, I kept walking by a stand that had blankets on it, and it kept catching my eye, and he says, he's just showing me right now, "Those were the weighted blankets. Go look at them."
Yeah, well, hey, it's good when you're in Canada, but in Texas, it's hard to have a bunch of weighted blankets. All right, we're
Oh,
going to
no
get
kidding.
started with the topic
Yes,
at hand. We're going to talk
yes.
about, well, we're going to try to do all of these. I don't know if we will, but how you can tell if you're a teacher, how you can tell if you are a healer, and how you can tell if you are a star seed. So, Eric, let's start with teacher. How can people, I'm going to get my little notes out of here from when I did a session on how can you tell if you're an empath. How can you tell if you are here as a teacher?
Okay, so the first thing he's saying is, and he said this to me earlier too when I asked him about, how do we know, first of all, like, even how do we even, what direction do we even go in? He goes, well, first of all, um, the whole idea, whether you are any of these things, and the fact that, he goes, there's some questions that people have when they start watching these videos or they're drawn to these type of subjects. They say, well, this really does sound like me. Is it just me wanting to be this because I think it's really cool, or is this actually me? And Eric's just saying, if you're watching this right now and you are interested in this topic, so you are these things. And he
Oh,
goes,
okay.
really? He goes, he also wants to say too that the labels that are defined to say starseed or this or that, he goes, these are human labels. These are what human beings
Oh, yeah.
feel that, and he goes, and it is important. He says he's not knocking the idea that we do put names and whatnot on things. He says because it does help our human brains, especially those that are very logical thinking. It helps put things in order to understand it.
Sure.
So he says it's completely okay, but he goes, there are traits though, he says, that are a little more for some than they are for others. So he says when looking at a teacher, he says the first thing that you're going to have is anybody who's a teacher is going to notice that most of their life they would have a lot of people coming to them for information, coming to them for you just may have the answers. And he says chances are if you're a teacher you're also an empath as well, and you have had a lot of experience in understanding something and being able to explain that to somebody else. He says you also will have an appreciation for information, for just gathering information, for whether it be for somebody else or for yourself. You are an
I
information
love that.
gatherer.
I am an information junkie. Every time, what did that word come from? What was the origin of that idiom? I'm on the computer or on my phone. It drives my husband crazy.
Well, he says that you're a combination of a few of them.
Yeah.
And he goes, and that's another point to make too. He goes, truthfully, he goes, everybody's kind of peppered with a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
He goes, we are all one, and we really are, but there are some of us that are a little more led in one thing or another based on what our soul path is or what we are here to accomplish and here to do. So he's just saying that you've got teacher, and he says it's also very common for a teacher to have leadership in their energy as well. And so he's saying that you have teacher, leadership, and healer within you.
Okay.
And he goes, and so what that also means is that somebody would have an ability to be able to go in different directions, because there's like a primary energy. So if the primary energy was a teacher, then that may be more of a speaking and teaching in groups. And if the primary energy were a leader, it may come out in speaking in larger groups and speaking to masses and whatnot.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So is it usually a spiritual contract to come in here as a teacher?
Well, he said depending on what the so if you okay, all right, so he's just saying that everybody does play teacher at some point in time, right?
Okay.
So, and he said, so is it a spiritual contract that you are going to because he's like just saying to me that there's a contract between myself and my children that I am going to be a teacher. So he says is the perspective on what you're looking at as teacher can be slightly different. But he says that yes, if you're coming in to be a teacher to help, he says specifically right now, people that are awakening to their path, and a lot of the teachers right at this time have a spiritual contract into being part of the ascension and part of the awakening.
So there are
Right now,
a lot more teachers coming in.
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
there's not like these souls are teacher souls and they come in. Anybody could come in as a teacher, right?
He says yes. There are some that maybe are. Now, he also said too, let's look at the fact that there are also teachers within the education system, like the
Yeah.
public education
Mhm.
system. There are teachers he's talking about food, planting, growing. There are people in so many different industries
Oh,
that
yeah.
are teachers. So it's not just the spiritual contract that they're coming
Oh.
in to do.
So, and it's not
He
just
did say that.
spiritual teachers.
Right,
Yeah.
right. He says it's on. So he says it's like if we start with the word teacher, he says then we imagine it's like the information cloud. So we've got teacher, and then we break that down to, okay, what kind of teacher are you?
Ah,
And
okay.
and it goes, and that's where free will plays a lot too.
Yeah.
So there may be a soul who's come into a human body that is going to be a spiritual teacher, and they are going to be part of the ascension, and they are going to help awaken humanity.
Is that the
So
same as a
that's,
light worker? I'm sorry. Is that the same as a light worker? Or, I mean, we could talk about
yes,
light workers separately, but
yes. And he said yes, and he goes, but another thing he wants to say, there's a spin-off off to this as well, Mom, because he said um, a light worker is not just limited to working within spirituality with having that awareness. He says a
oh.
light worker can also be a doctor working right in the
Mhm.
hospital. A light worker can be the lady that's taking your order at the restaurant. And,
Mhm.
she might be there to deliver specific pieces of information to people that come in every day that need healing. He says, so there's like, oh, okay. He's saying, let's look at it like a police department. We've got the undercover operators. We've
Yeah.
got the more obvious ones that are out in uniform walking in the street. And, we've got the ones that are like the investigators. He goes, everybody's got the same overall goal,
Mhm.
but they've got all these individual jobs. So he goes, that's kind of how the way you can look at light workers. And then if you break it down in that, there are different types of teachers and
Okay.
in what field.
So what defines a light worker? Or, we'll do that as a separate thing, I think, because
Yeah,
that
he's just saying he was saying that could get very complex
okay.
to going into that. Yeah.
Okay. So Erik, what were you in this last incarnation? I know you
He's
were an
referring
empath.
to,
Empath for
yes,
sure.
yes, yeah. He said empath. He's also referring to himself as an
Okay.
indigo energy or indigo child.
Yes.
Um, he also says he was a teacher.
Yeah, people came
And
up to him from all over the place, confiding in him, coming with their life problems, and I don't know. So
mhm.
I don't know if that means he's a teacher or healer or both, but
He was just saying he was a teacher and a healer. Um, he said that a lot of his student, like he was also a student as well, because he did gain value through experience in his life, but
hmm,
he's done a lot of student work as Erik, because he's still living on in our life with the
yeah,
work that he's doing. So a lot of the work that he's learned has been on this side of things, or on
good.
in his spirit body.
Well, you
But
sure
he's
didn't
saying
hate school here, though. I'm telling you. Ooh,
that he's just saying, he goes, I wasn't the best student.
no, no,
I was
no.
not
But
the best student.
well,
But
not
he said
everybody can be.
he had huge empathy for others, and he said that he had a really
Yeah,
hard time,
he did.
could not wrap his head around the fact that others could be cruel, that
I know.
others could be why would others just be so difficult. He just didn't understand it. He said he um in his mind wanted to see the world as everybody just doing what they wanted to do and being happy,
Yeah.
and all the other stuff, it was very hard on him. It
Yeah, the
weighed on
bullying and all that, not just to him, but to others. He
to
really had a
others. He couldn't
hard
understand
time.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just couldn't understand that.
Mm-mm.
And but he taught people as well. He taught people patience. He taught people about being in the moment, about he's showing himself being very silly about humor, but sense of humor,
Yeah. Oh, he had a great
um,
sense of humor.
and laughter. He says these are all teaching. He goes, whether it be the lessons that he left, because he says a lot of his teaching was done after his death.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was what he had left, and what experiences that were still, the energy of those experiences are still being used as a teaching example.
Well, I know one must be about a lesson in loss. What other lessons did you deliver posthumously?
He's just talking about frustration, um, pain and frustration. He's talking about the frustration that you all had as a family in not being able to give him relief,
Yeah.
or not feeling that you were able to take away his pain,
Yeah.
no matter how
That was
hard you
tough.
tried.
Yeah, oh God, we
Yes.
did. Oof. Yeah.
And he says that that's I mean, it's also a lesson to show that, you know, you can't control another person, the manifestations of their own free will. You can
That's
do as
true.
much as you can to guide and to support, and he goes, and that's what this is all about, but to also understand that one's path is one's path, and they make the choices, and, you know, what are you going to do when you're left with it? What are you going to
Yeah.
do with those choices? And he says, so that was a really big lesson for many people. And he's saying not just our family, Mom, but for the many families that have lost
Yeah.
others, you know, to be able to look into their own lives with the example of what has happened to our family. So he's just saying that there were a lot of lessons for him that were um, not revealed. He said almost like he's showing me like an unwrapping,
Okay.
a lot that came in an unwrapping, or an unraveling of the grief after
Yeah.
his passing, and
Like an
that has
onion.
expanded.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
within layers.
All right. Hey, Eric, if you can, leave an EVP. Say something on the recording.
That is so funny that you said that. That's
Yeah.
crazy, because you just reminded me. He said, tell her, before we started, he goes, tell Mom to listen for my voice.
All right, guys,
Listen for
listen
my
for his voice. That would be so cool. I
Yeah,
remember after your first suicide attempt, Eric, I asked you, what do you think you're here to do? And I can't remember what you said. Maybe it was to teach people X, be who they are. It started with to teach people something. I don't know why I can't remember that. What did you
um,
say?
he's just saying to teach people to be who they really are, to
Yeah, I
be
think
who
that
they
was it.
are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something that maybe you had a conversation with him, because he's just saying,
Yeah, I did it right in front of the garage in the driveway.
oh, okay, oh, so you actually did, because
Yeah.
he's showing me a visual of you two actually talking
Yeah.
about this, like
Mhm.
face to face.
Yeah.
Okay. And was he okay, because he's just saying that he was like, I don't know who I am, or what I want to do doesn't mean anything,
Oh,
is
yeah.
what he's saying. So like he's showing me as if this is what he was saying in response to you,
Okay.
and just feeling he didn't feel that anything that he had was sticking, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And it
Like
seems
he'd
like
get
he also
excited
said
about something.
to teach people just to be. Maybe. I don't know. He said so much after his death that I'm getting confused.
Yeah, yeah. He said that he didn't feel that he could be completely who he was. He
Yeah.
felt like that was being held
A
down,
lot of
like that
people
was
feel
being
like that.
blocked.
Yeah. A
Yes,
lot of
yeah, and he
people.
said that's right, and he says that the biggest thing, and he says, and what we are awakening to is not just awakening to the fact that, oh, okay, there is more out here, and yes, we do survive the physical body, but to understand that we're here right now, and we can actually do something about our lives if we
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah.
If there is something going on in our lives, maybe we can't control everything and everybody else's decisions, but there is something that we can do. He says there's always something that we
Yeah.
can do.
Even if it's just shifting perspective. like realizing that you can't take responsibility for other people's baggage. You can only take responsibility for your reaction to their baggage, I guess. Now, I asked when I talked about empaths, I asked what kind of symptoms. It was like anxiety, depression, just little things. I mean, what kind of, I don't want to say negative symptoms, but what kind of signs? Are there any signs in a teacher? I've heard before that you said that sometimes teachers, sometimes lonely people are teachers because students come in and out of their lives.
Yes, Eric's pointing to me, and he's just saying, you can tell her, Michelle. This is, I was, or I am such an empath, and was so out of control sensitive, we'll say.
Mm.
Just I didn't understand my emotions, and Erik is just saying that anxiety can feel in many different ways. It can come out in like an excitement.
Yeah.
It can come out in fear. It
Yeah.
can come out in and he goes, often fear, it's that unknown excitement. I don't know why I feel this way, or
Yeah.
trying to attach it to something physical. But he says, so somebody that feels deeply, he goes, often you can see this in children, when they don't want to go to certain places. And he
Yeah.
says, he goes, it's, I mean, and a parent should look at a physical situation, but when a child's denying wanting to go somewhere, there's a lot of different factors to look at. And he said the children right now, and he's citing 2012 being like a real point of very clear, open children, very,
Mm.
very empathic children that are being born. But he said that to really pay attention to the energy, or to the people, the situations. And he says, and again, this is something else to get into about children and whatnot, but that helping children understand that there's things that they can do within their control. Because a lot of empathic people, when they are not in awareness of who they are or what they're able to do, because he says it's a lot of perspective flipping. It's a lot of understanding how how your physiology works. As he says, it feels very out of control and chaotic. And it
Yeah.
can also come across as, he's just saying a lot of empaths were diagnosed with ADD,
Mm.
like with
True.
not doing very well in school. I would be
Mhm.
one of them.
Yeah.
Just not being able to concentrate for very long, but yet
Yeah, because all this
um,
energy is coming at you, coming at you,
yes,
and you don't know how to
yes,
process it. Same thing with my granddaughter, Arlene. She's
yes,
terrible time in school because of that. So.
and super intelligent. Like,
Hmm.
Eric's like, the thing is he says these are very, very intelligent people, and sometimes they're just so sensitive that there's just too much going on in one
Yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
my daughter in high school just got completely I went into the school and overhauled her whole schedule, because it's too much.
Yeah.
And
Good.
now she's flying through her courses because she's
Oh,
in a small space, and she's
good.
able to do it in her own time. So
Oh,
Eric's just saying
awesome.
that there's a lot of things that now, with the awareness and how this is growing, that it's really going to help the empath. But recognizing that you're an empath, I mean, the biggest things would be that you feel, he's like, you feel all of your own shit, and you feel everybody else's shit too.
Yeah, but I
And
hear
he
that
said,
you can make anxiety your friend. You can actually perceive it as not just something fear based, but it's basically can be because you're an empath, just you being in a higher vibration, like what occurs when when mediums are channeling. They go to this higher vibration, and so that is not necessarily a bad thing. But what about teachers? So do some of them feel lonely because people just come to the lab and then leave when they've got their lessons?
he says that yes, that can be it. He says that now a lot of times if you have a spiritual teacher, they're also ascending on their own path
Yeah,
as
I guess
well.
I'm talking about spiritual teachers right now. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. And he said, and so as they ascend on their path, he goes, if you could imagine it as looking at vibrations, and he says, and not looking at vibrations as a higher, he wants to say an expanded vibration, rather than look at it as up or down, because it can look
Right.
higher or lower,
Yeah.
right? So he's just saying, as the spiritual teacher is on their own path and they're expanding, a student is there for a period of time to receive what that teacher has to offer at that right divine time.
Yeah.
And that teacher is also expanding, and their vibrations then change.
Okay.
So then they're then attracted to this new vibration of where they're at, to be able to take in all the opportunities and learning that they have there, and then they expand again. So a teacher would be doing, especially a spiritual teacher, would become aware of that. It's like a pattern
Okay. Well,
that
what
they
about,
have.
can that be the cause of some divorces? Like one of the spouses is a student, one's a teacher, and all right, the
Yeah.
contract's over. I've learned what you were supposed to teach me, and now it's time to go on.
Yes, and Erik said so. That's exactly what it is. And he goes, when you have two consciously aware people that are very aware that they're following a spiritual path, that can settle out a lot easier
Oh
than
yeah.
it needs to be, because they're very aware that that time has come, that they're they're separating. He's actually
Yeah.
saying that there are divorce ceremonies that
Oh.
some are having now,
Hmm.
that is like our contract is over,
Yeah.
thank you for helping me learn. And he's
That's
saying that
cool.
that's a really positive way of looking at
Mhm.
changing the energy from ending a marriage.
Yeah.
But he's saying that where it kind of becomes a bit of trouble is where we get into these patterns, and there's codependency
Oh yeah.
in the relationship. So then they still have some work to do on themselves, but the contract is over, and
Yeah.
they're looking at getting their validation from this relationship, so neither of them want to leave. So he said that can make where these situations get very difficult, because things will eventually, when your contract's over and it's not for your highest good, he goes, especially with the energy right now, it can make your noise a little bigger, he
Well,
said,
what can you?
to
How
get
can you
things done.
find out? How can you find out if your contract is over?
Well, he said, first of all, he says you have to be very honest with yourself.
Oh yeah.
You have to be very honest with yourself in looking into exactly, because he says, when you are in a marriage and this is a spiritual contract and this contract has ended, there will be a lot coming up that will just feel like band-aids. He says, so
Oh yeah.
basically it's usually going to happen. He says right now a person would recognize this by their vibration would be changing, so their interests are changing, and that other person is not changing with them and has no desire to do so.
Okay. Yeah.
So he says that's a really big, so it's a lot of awareness, and he says it's a lot of really getting honest with yourself to be able to say, okay, like I need to look at this, because once you get honest with yourself, then you have to answer the big questions and say, am I ready to be alone? Am I ready? Because he says you won't grow unless you can make that choice.
Yeah.
And he says, so you could sit in that and cycle, because it is your choice to sit in that
Yeah.
and cycle as long as you want. But he says, if you have somewhere that you need to be, or if you're meant to further on your path to be part of what you have contracted to do, and say you have something that's necessary, he said, things will blow up in your face a little bit until you make a
Right.
choice to go elsewhere.
What can? Of course, you can go get regressed to the between lives stage, planning stage prior to this incarnation, and find out what the spiritual contract was. Or could
Yeah.
they book a session with you, and their guides can come through, or Erik can
Yep.
come through and say, yeah, you guys were here to learn blah blah blah, and it's over. Or no, you still got, can you do that? Is that cheating?
No, it just depends on, Erik and I do this quite a bit. We often somebody will come, and Erik's just saying that we talk about this, because he says to me all the time, often somebody will already know in their heart, they'll already know in their mind
Oh yeah.
that this is done. So he said that, we're not talking to somebody that's going to have a big shock.
Yeah.
because he says it's not gonna resonate with you if it's not true.
Right.
So when you're coming and saying, is this a contract? Like, is this just done? Am I meant to, like,
Yeah.
I'm banging my head against the wall and I've been doing it for 2 years and he or she is not changing and they're not. And Erik goes, pretty much all of the time it's well, what you've been doing hasn't been working. So it's time to do something new.
What percent of
And
divorce?
that,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
he's just saying that means stepping up boundaries
Oh, yeah.
and being very clear on what you want and what you don't want. And if that person's not able to make those changes, then you're not going to grow in that situation.
Okay. What percentage do you think? What are you doing, Lilu? What percentage of divorces are because the spiritual contract's over? Let's say just in America. Well, anywhere, all through the
um
world.
um okay, so he's showing me on a pie, so would that be like 70? Over half, he says.
Okay, over half.
Over half. And he says because um he goes, even though there's free will, he goes, most marriages and unions, and he says, let's just take marriage out of it, just the union of
Yeah. Yeah.
partnering with somebody, because really that's what it is. He goes, most
Okay.
of those unions are to mirror each other and to be able to grow within a relationship. He goes, when somebody says, well, I've had 5 marriages and I just keep going the next one to the next one to the next one, Erik says a lot of the times the problem is with that person who has not taken responsibility for whatever they need to do in the relationship or what they're not seeing about themselves.
Mm.
So they're ending this marriage to start to go into that honeymoon phase, he says, where
Yeah.
everything's really nice until the real stuff starts to come out and then carries on.
Okay.
So he said that to effectively have a relationship with another person in that type of relationship, he goes, we could refer to this as a twin flame or like a soulmate type relationship. He goes, not all of those relationships are meant to stay together for the entirety of this incarnation.
Okay.
So, you've got a soul that loves you a great deal and is going to come together for you and sacrifice being a real jerk, he says, and to get you to do what you need to do to be able to go forward on your life path.
Okay.
And he says, and that's a really good way of looking at it, because he says, to be able to spiritually look at it and just kind of pull yourself away from it being he said, she said type stuff. It's
Yeah.
bigger than
Okay. So both can be teachers and both can be students in a relationship too, right?
yes. He says it often does go back and forth. And he says that people that are spiritually evolving together,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a lot of soulmate relationships, he says it's not easy. It is not easy because it takes a lot of he says getting real with yourself and being able to gulp some pride,
Oh,
pushing
that's
down
hard.
ego. And he goes, that is a lot of hard
Hey,
work.
raise 5 kids and your ego is gone, gone. What about, you have estranged parents, estranged children? Is that sometimes because the contract is done?
Yes. He
Okay.
goes, whether the contract be through death or be through estrangement, as he's saying that parents and children, he goes, it's all titles. They're still
Yeah.
relationships.
I really think that people, if that happens, they ought to find out from their guides or whoever
But Erik's
what the
also saying,
contract was.
Erik's also saying as well, and he says, yes, you can. And he's just adding to, because he didn't really finish answering that question, but he's just saying that, yes, you can find out these things. He goes, sometimes, though, he goes, people will want to take control of a situation, understand everything a certain way right now. And he goes, it's not always meant to be that way.
No.
So
Yeah.
he says there needs to be patience, and he goes, and you'd be told that if there's something that you're not meant to know right now, that's usually there's a reason why. They'll be happy to share with you.
Okay.
You know.
Now, last question, and then we're going to stop the recording and maybe try to talk about healers just briefly. Can an animal and children be your teacher?
Yes.
Oh, I figured it. Anything else you want to say about being a teacher, Erik?
He's just saying that a lot of people right now who are on the ascension path and really wanting to go into their life's work, or they feel this desire to want to share information, and he goes, he just wants to let everybody know that that starts right in your own home, in your own
Mhm.
community. And he goes, he's not saying this in a preachy way. He goes, this isn't about everybody joining a club or a certain type of
Yeah,
religion. He goes, this is sharing who we really are and what awareness is available to everyone. But he goes, never feel that you need to push this information on anybody. He goes, understand that those okay. And he's saying, trust and have faith, because those that are ready to hear what you have to say will come to you. And
right.
he says, and they come in opportunities in your home, opportunities sitting on a bus bench,
Hmm.
or wherever you are. He goes, you're a teacher in what you do every day. And he says, and as you do that, if your desire is to go out and spread it a little bit more, then he goes, put your intentions into that. And he goes, the thing is, he goes, learn to speak up and to share and have confidence in what you're sharing about. And he goes, and
Okay.
that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Erik. You guys check out Michelle at the healing h-arts no s dot
No.
com. No s. I'll put it up here. Don't worry about it.
Yay,
All
you
right.
did it.
Yay. All right. And I'll get it the next time too. I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll
Okay.
restart it and talk about healers.